relish in the sounds. So smooth.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That's Growth Ops. And today we have a special guest. He's the CEO of Air Traffic Control, a personalization engine for HubSpot that's making waves in the marketing landscape. With a robust background in sales, marketing, and leadership, he's well-versed in creating meaningful engagements. Please join me and Chris in welcoming community expert and marketing leader, Nick Zeggets. Hi, Nick.
Dang.
That all sounded really good.
Thanks for being a first paid speaking guest. Best 10 G's you've ever spent.
Yeah. I need you as my hype beast. I'm gonna carry you around with me and just have you announce me before I walk into rooms, because that all was really pretty awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
No, we're glad to have you here. Now, we typically dive into some news and stuff like that, but I want to dive into who you are, let our audience get to know you a bit. Now, through some of my research, I can see you've had an incredibly diverse career. You started as a BDR and you moved your way all the way up to CEO. Can you take us through some of the pivotal moments in your journey that kind of helped you get where you are and shaped your approach?
Yeah, geez. So the BDR work straight out of school, actually, I think in a lot of ways put me on the path to where I'm at now. And it was not just being a BDR, but it's where that happened. It was at this place called the Corporate Executive Board, which CEB Mafia in the house, unbelievably bright, unfairly smart killers, absolutely brilliant killers, and hundreds of them. I have not since that experience in my life run into another community of existing or alumni from any business that were nearly as impressive, which just made you up your game. And what you thought in other organizations that I ever went to, and they would talk about goaling BDRs, and they're like, yeah, we goal our BDRs at 10, 12 meetings a month. And I'm like, bro, that's a day, right? And it's just one of those types of things where you're setting expectations at such a level that the rest of your career is kind of, in a lot of ways, I think, very heavily influenced by what that first gig looks like. And it was both my first gig and my first real gig. I was lucky enough for both of those things to happen first out of the chute. And I think a lot of people spend years before they get their quote unquote first real gig. And that one was legit. Crushed in the BDR role. They outrageously promote very young people, or did back then before they got bought up by Gartner, but promoted people into roles that they had no business being in, right? I was 23 years old and walking into a, Fortune 500 CIO's office and having a conversation as if I had any idea what his or her day actually looked like. I mean, it was all content based. So we had these really rich studies on what these people were going through and what they were dealing with. And so for the rest of my career, I kind of started moving through, progressively more complex type of selling roles, getting to places like Nielsen, which was my first big software sales gig, selling stuff at 7 figures, which I'm really glad to have had that experience. Migrating out of there, taking over a sales org for a business that had just been acquired. So I learned a lot, both about what it looks like on the other side of an acquisition, grew from sales to sales and marketing to sales marketing product and CS. And things just kept expanding there, and irrationally so. I just had a boss who just kind of infinitely believed in me. And I oftentimes gave him signals that he probably shouldn't, but did anyway. And then found my way into my first startup in 2011 in the higher ed space, which was the worst, and did that for 7 years, and sold it in 2018 for roughly a Big Mac and a high five, and then took some corporate therapy, and then
more
got
than
back
most.
Yeah, right. I mean, we got to an exit, right? And it's the type of thing. It's we got there. I know what it looks like. It looked shitty, but we did get there, right? So, I've got that in my back pocket, I suppose, for the resume. But this time around, I think it's going to be a different.
That makes sense. It's cool that you had such a high impact start of your journey. You had mentioned that not a lot of people get that. Definitely like setting a precedent of what is and is not possible. I can see how
100%.
that positively impacted your career moving forward.
Totally. 100%. I mean, and I think it's really interesting. Like, I have completely stopped working with interns because I believe, by and large, like higher ed teaches people to be completely inept at getting any actual work done. This is me to you, higher ed. Get your act together. But it's just one of those deals where there's just it isn't just an onboarding program. It's not just training. It's culture, right? And I think you guys really get that. Chris in particular, I know you talk a lot about the culture that you're building and growth. I think it's a huge deal. I think people should be following that part of your messaging as much as any of your expertise around building real programs. But that was a lot of it, right? This expectation of come to kill, right? And you kill and you get to eat and play, right? And I'll never live by any other mantra.
Culture is so fun because it's so much easier to talk about than agriculture. From hey, there's a forest fire. What are you gonna do? Run and scream and point fingers? Or you're gonna run into it and throw some buckets of water on it? Like nobody wants to hear about the bucket throwing, but that's how culture's made. Turns out. So if anyone's looking for the magic method, just have a lot of problems and solve them however you feel is the right way to do that. And that's, by the way, how everyone else is going to solve problems for the rest of forever.
That's
Thankfully,
right.
I was a run into the fire and pour water on it and communicate with those around me type. So over time, I believe those are the signs of culture that you're saying.
Yeah.
A lot of camaraderie here.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I dig that.
Yeah, there's nothing that beats a late night Slack message talking about Star Wars.
Oh, thank you. That also is me. Yeah. I mean, that show was killer. The Acolyte. I mean, 5-star.
Yeah.
I was a fan.
It was great.
From day
it was
one.
great.
I like G.I. Joe, though. Like, some people would argue that was a terrible movie. But so don't hold my movie opinions as like, oh, did you know Chris is also a movie critic? Like, everything gets a pass with me. It's like, yeah, sure. Why not? You never know. This is like, believe it or not, people are more curious, like you had just said about the culture thing, or about just hearing a couple of dudes talk about their journey more than me just talking about ABM for 50 minutes. But
yeah, I dig it. And I think part of the deal there is to, and not to, ooh, God, this sounds a lot like a horse manure LinkedIn post. I went running today and saw a tree, and this is what it taught me about ABM. No, it's like, I think the thing that's really interesting about that, like thinking about culture and thinking about ABM in its current kind of state, is that there is a real cultural mandate to figure it out, because I think there's been this like historical definition of what it is, and it was wrong. It was like deeply, horribly, awfully wrong. And I think it was largely set by like the early software vendors that kind of defined the space, and people started to define what that like framework was through the lens of a set of like fairly standardized features. And it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're actually talking about cultural alignment in between all of our different revenue teams, right? And what that looks like and what it smells like. And I think it's really interesting to kind of think about, some of the best marketers I know, the best chief revenue officers I know, and which are few and far freaking between, because the vast majority of them are salespeople who got ownership over marketing and don't know and worse, don't care. But like the best CROs and the best CMOs I know are people who deeply care about that kind of cultural framework, and it colors everything else: incentive programs, structures, approach, spirit of the mission. Like everything gets better after that. So, whether it seems like a clear straight line between culture and success and the types of stuff that you guys make possible for your customers, it's a pretty straight line from where I'm standing.
I've feel like you were talking to me and giving us a compliment, and so thank you very much. I don't know if that was directly or indirectly. You know, it's been a weird, of my 20 years, something about this last like 4 to 6 weeks has been like a recurring theme about like leading from a marketer's perspective, and I kind of forget that is my journey, is not as a BDR. So it's been nice to hear, because I do have found along my journey feeling a bit of out of the picture by not at some one point being a heavy sales or even heavy operations person, and really just focusing on, like, for lack of a better term, since I was like learned my prowess from Red Bull, is like how to move cases, like butts in the seat, like moving product is what I do, like more deals sold, and then have it kind of evolve into some of these more technical functions has been enjoyable. And I've been blessed to meet some really cool, really amazing people along the way. Rich Walsh was my first person I walked into my first inbound and met. Like, we had virtually met before, but on like check-in day 2021.
Dude, is that right?
Yeah, it's accurate. I was curried off into a corner working on an app. I
can literally picture my mind and see it in my mind. Yeah, 100% true. And then, like, right after him, he was sitting next to Kyle Jepsen, and then it like was a very nice, safe way to enter a post-COVID first large meeting energy. So it was very lovely, and I'm just very happy now. Rich is at Growth, but before he was slinging an AI copy tool, which we bought.
Now it's
laying groundwork for future hire. I knew what I was doing.
That's right.
He knew what he was doing. And developed a great friendship out of it at the same time.
Absolutely, man. It's like, you know, Nick, I met at the following year's inbound at Apollo, put on a happy hour and had us both as like co-host, I think might be the most appropriate way. And you were folding up paper airplanes outside of the brewery and trying to get people to participate in a airplane throwing contest, and I wouldn't because it was fucking hot, and it was sweaty, so dude. Hot.
So real talk.
I wanted to participate, but I could not. I was drinking beer to cool down, which is not science.
Legitimately zero judgment. All right, that was a journey that night. All right, so we were rolling into inbound. I live 9 miles away from the Boston Convention Center. I knew what the weather was going to be. It was going to be cool, and it was going to be early fall. It was going to be beautiful. And then Mother Nature just crapped all over everything about my hometown. And so we get there in our planning. We thought we were the cleverest people on planet Earth. And so we got these like bright orange ground crew jackets. They were jackets, my man, like jackets.
Full body, right? Like,
man, and they were so, what was hysterical is that I did hear from people later, they're like, oh my God, you guys are everywhere. No, we're not. There's two of us. This thing's just so bright that you couldn't miss us. I mean, literally glasses to not have eye damage as a result of these jackets. So we have these on, and because it's our promotional event, I'm like, we can't take them off. Oh my God. It was like 87 degrees outside or something. By the time we left, I was supposed to like do a bunch of stuff the next morning. I came home, I cleared 800 million gallons of water, and I slept until like 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I'm not. I mean, seriously, I thought I was going to end up such a baby. I'm the biggest baby in the history of marketing. But it's for inbound. It's for inbound. I'll do anything for.
Well, that brings us, like, you keep talking about doing this party. Where's the planning at now that you're on a recorded line? What are we doing?
Ooh, bro, it's going to be great. I can talk about this right now. All right. Oh. Lord Hobo. It is a brewery that's walking distance. It is local. It is dope. Their beer is phenomenally delicious. Full venue, buyout. I'm super psyched about it. There's going to be a whole bunch of people coming in and hanging out. And I think what's like so cool about it, dude, the HubSpot community feels so different to me than any other ecosystem I've ever operated in. It's just
I agree with
that. There's like a real sense of like you plus those guys plus us equals great things happen, right? And it's super thrilling for me, particularly as a small company founder, to be able to lean into a growth and be like, you guys have established trust with your customers who don't know us but look like our customers, right? So like, I would far rather go through a trustworthy channel than spend the next 6 to 12 months trying to build some like sense of awareness and credibility and trust, in a synthetic way, right? And the thing that's been really amazing is how willing folks have been to do that. And also, I think the other thing that's really interesting is there was this race to best of breed in RevTech years ago. And then there was a set it all on fire, rationalized down to a handful of tools. And I think the thing that's gotten really interesting, at least within the HubSpot ecosystem, and I know the Salesforce ecosystem has tried to work on this some, and the Adobe ecosystem hasn't even thought about it at all. It's really interesting to me is that there's this real clear sense of, no. Like, we even as HubSpot are recommending tools to you to use that are not ours. Like, because we're all in on that and we have point issues. We know that we do. We can't solve everything for everybody all the time. And it's just really been remarkable. I mean, everybody from HubSpot CSMs to agencies to other software vendors are like, how do we tell a story together, right, that lifts all boats, right? And I've been really fired up about that in a way that I've never really felt this excited about building in a ecosystem approach. And that's a lot of what's coloring this event. It's like, these are all other super cool companies and people that we love and that they're really smart and they do stuff that we don't do. And I don't want to do those things and they don't want to do our things, or at least I don't think they do. So,
you started mentioning ABM and its origins with the big software companies, finding some markers and then drilling that down to do outreach.
Mm.
You and I met last year.
Mm.
I saw what air traffic control was doing and I told you, love it. Don't have a marketer that can control it. But like, where did you, coming from such sales background, like, how did you, it's hard for me to envision you having that moment where you're like a tool like air traffic controller, which, let's say from my outside in, I haven't looked at it much in the last few months, but essentially curates the content based off of my own search history. So it's more relevant, increasing the chances that I engage with some content or any content compared to not having that tool. Where did you see the light to like go off on the mission and create this sort of tool?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things in there, right? So that very first gig at Corporate Executive Board, there were things that I would do, all of which were super content centric. And we didn't really have marketing back then. I mean, this is 23, 24 years ago. There was no marketing, right? We had an org that like did some events or something. I think we had maybe like some lightweight PR, which was more about trying to boost our stock price, but we didn't really have marketing and nobody did, right? Like, marketing was kind of a joke. It was in a corner. Like, it wasn't professionalized in the way that it is now. And they didn't have the tooling. God, our CRM was a joke. It was manual entry. Everything was something called Siebel, which was, God, set that thing on fire. But it was like, and so basically I operated my entire life at a cube with a phone and a desktop computer that had Outlook on it. And Hoover's was like our only research database. That was from Dun & Bradstreet, right? So this is all we had. And so to think about that, you had really only two ways that you could get, as a 22-year-old, snot-nosed idiot, there are only really two things that you could do in order to hit your meetings quota as an inside sales guy, right? You could beat the ever-loving hell out of the phones, right? And be just as personable and persistent as humanly possible when you got them. That still works, by the way. So I'm still a fan of that. But the thing is like, at a certain point, when your territory is only X number of units, there's a real risk that you've called everybody by the end of Q1, right? And you've got 3 more quarters to go. And so the second time I get you on the phone, as the CIO of General Motors, I better have something interesting to say, because it can't be, what about now? Right? So like that never worked. It's never been interesting. Like humans have always been humans. And so what we had back then were all these like best practices studies, right? So that's what that business did. They said, all right, CIOs of all these big companies, what's hard? And they would go, oh, this, that, and the infrastructure planning and, AppSec, whatever. And then people would say, and this is how I'm tackling that. And then they would take all the stuff, they put it together, and they'd hand it back to the membership. One of the greatest like grifts of all time, right? They basically said, tell us what's hard. Okay, now let's find some of you who did it well, and then we'll put that in a binder and hand it back to you. I swear to God, that was the business, and it was trading when I joined there at almost 120, price to revenue multiples. It was insane. So the thing that we would do largely as a business was just hammer phones, but I would take parts of those studies out, and what I would do is I would fax them to these executives, and then I would call and I would email related to the fax. And I'd stand by the fax machine. I'd send 100 faxes out, right? I'll have sent an email. It's like I'm sending a fax. And I sent those emails using Outlook's mail merge feature, which sadly enough is a lot of what current like versions of personalization look like, which are absolute horseshit. So then I'd fax those out, having said, hey, some stuff is coming. Then I would call and I'd be like, hey, I sent that thing. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. Right. And then I got so brazen that when Q4 would come around, I would take those studies and I would take like an 18-page like case study, right, with a bunch of cool like templates and stuff in it. And I would take out pages 4 and 7 and 12. And then I would fax it to a Domino's pizza near that person's office, and I'd have the pizza delivered to their office. And then I'd call and I'd ask them if they wanted pages 4, 7, and 12. 200% a goal. All right. I crushed at that business, but it was always about the content. The entire time it was about the content. And the thing that's really remarkable is that if you look at marketing automation now, we have the capacity with air traffic control in play to figure out what of all that content is actually going to get somebody to move. Right. And there's a couple of things to me that are super compelling. And I fundamentally believe that half of ABM, and I mean half of the entire concept, is actually content. I got targeting, I got data, I got signals, I got timing, I got execution, I got pathways. But without the content, you've got nothing, right? That's product marketing is one great message. I need that, but then I have to be able to back it up. I need case studies, blog posts, podcasts, webinars, events. I need all that stuff, because otherwise there's no way for people to get to a place that they actually believe in it. And so a lot of what, and dude, Rich, we literally just had this conversation about driving increasingly deeper quality of engagement with people, and saying, if I can just get you to click on a quick blog post, then I've got a better chance of getting you to click to a course that we made. And then I've got a better chance of getting you to listen to a podcast that we did. And then I've got a better chance of getting you to actually show up to one of our product demos, right? But I have to build you deeper and deeper and deeper into the funnel. And if I only get to hit your inbox, your LinkedIn, your whatever, 11 times before you make a decision about whether or not I'm annoying and an idiot or actually potentially useful to you, I have to optimize those 11 touch points, which might turn into 90 touch points over the course of the next year and a half. But whether I'm dropping you into a life cycle campaign or I'm putting you in front of an AE as a qualified rep, as a qualified opportunity, either way, I have to have done my damnedest to give you the very best of what I have, to establish as much of a baseline of relevance as I possibly can. And that's been how the very best frontline sellers have done their jobs forever. And then marketing came around, and a lot of what marketing did in the early days was actually sales enablement and create content for the sales team to go out and activate against. Now we've got this volume of stuff. And the fact that we can actually put it in 7,000 people's hands a day and optimize what of it gets in 7,000 people's hands, we're actually starting to get to a place of like really exciting opportunity. And it's the crux of ABM. If I want to send you to a microsite, I got two choices. Pick the 50 accounts that I can actually wire that whole damn page up one by freaking one for 50 companies, or I can get some machinery in place that's actually deciding what that page is going to do for every single person who goes there and scale it from 50 ABM accounts per quarter to 5,000. And this is where I think that we're at, is the content. You know, people talk about machine learning and generative AI and all this kind of stuff, and people are starting to talk about like RAG models, right? It's like the retrieval augmented generation of AI, right, is basically saying I'm taking proprietary knowledge and activating that against my model. Guys, like everybody, ladies and gentlemen, you have both the RAG and the output in the exact same place at your content archive. You don't have to generate something new, and you don't need some other random set of inputs. You just need to know what people are interested in, which is coming through prior engagement and other types of signal sources. I love looking at stuff like Clay and Trigify and user gems, and all these different types of things are great at helping us understand what somebody cares about. Now you can connect the dots at scale, and you don't have to produce new like Spintax 3.0 horse crap. You wrote a blog post 9 months ago that Chris is going to love. You had a podcast 4 months ago that Rich is going to love. Activate it. Actually use that stuff, right? And so that's,
and like, when someone's able to use your tool, are you seeing a message that like on the outreach end, where instead of click here, which will have a stagnant piece of information, so I'm hoping you click and hoping that the message lands, instead you can say like something a little bit more generalized, or maybe not, or maybe a little bit more nuanced, because you know that the ATC software is going to be building out a special page just for them. And then the trick is like, how do you say that in a human-esque way? That you've got pages 4, 7, and 12 and a pizza waiting for them.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff that I think is really interesting. One, the context for the content getting delivered. That's part of the puzzle where we're still looking at partners and how that actually happens in the right way to do it. In some scenarios, it's easy, right? We have customers who have newsletters, and they're like, hey, first name, here we are again with some awesome stuff just for you, right? And so that opening paragraph is like, oh, okay, whatever. But then all the content in that email has been dynamically chosen for the individual, right? We've got touch points where one of the features that the product has is we ingest syndicated content. So we have 50,000 news sources coming to the back end. You can pick 10 topics of your choice. Inbound marketing, content marketing, HubSpot, for us, are the types of things that we cover. We get the best of all of that from New York Times and Forbes and wherever else. And so there's a life cycle touch point where you can just say, oh, hey, I just read this article. It's not ours, but I don't know. I thought you'd find it interesting.
Yeah.
Super lightweight, wicked personalized, small touch, works great in a life cycle, right? And then guess what? They click on it. And then guess what? You got an engagement. And then guess what? You know what that content was about. And then their interest graph improves. And then the email after that, where you send them a recommended blog post, your resolution just increased as a result of that piece of engagement that you got 4 days prior. Right?
That's cool. Did I catch that you can import or like leverage content from other channels, like, a New York Times or, insert?
Totally. Yep. We have
cool.
a big syndicated news pipe that comes in. That's really cool. And it also helps us build interest graphs on people, because we also look at news about the company where they work. If you sell to SMB, that piece of it is not terribly useful. But if you sell to the enterprise, it's actually remarkably insightful.
Where every second is important.
Totally. 100%. And
that's
those
cool.
Insights are coming in. Yeah. So the use cases are kind of all over the place. Now, we are starting to play with some, I was just talking about it before we got on here, but some apps that actually allow you to, use LLMs relative to that information, right? So you could say, I have a recent trigger, value that's this, and then I have this stuff that's been recommended. can you spin me up an opening paragraph that reads with this kind of a structure? Hey, not, oh, I see that you live in Monterey, California. Here's my blog post. Dude, please get out of my inbox forever. It's hey, I saw this post that you had. We've got cool content about that. I thought I would share it with you. Right? Oh, man. Dude, we are getting so close because all this content has been written already by marketing teams and is already living on the website to the tune of hundreds, thousands of pieces of content. You already have all the substance. It's already there. So this need to spin tax your way to all these kind of weird gyrations of quote unquote personalization. It's everybody's chasing the wrong freaking rabbit. It's the wrong rabbit. Just get your library in order and you're going to be fine.
I mean, now that you've had this business around a while, what are some of the top problems that companies are having implementing your software? Like for me, it was size and resource and just needing to have somebody who can understand the mechanisms.
Totally.
Is that 100% a recurring theme?
Yeah. So if a company doesn't have somebody who has a marketing ops title, things can move a little slow. And we've got some feature improvements that we're working on. Rich had shown me this really cool module that you guys built a little while ago, where I could just drag and drop, 3 recommended blog posts onto any, web page or into an email, and put some backup values in there. Really easy, super simple, business user friendly types of modules. We're going to get into building modules and templates and letting people copy those out of ATC into their HubSpot environments. But if they have somebody who's got a MOPS title, we're good. We're totally fine. So that gets us over that hump. The other thing that's been really interesting is sometimes people hate their content archive.
It was one of our conversations too.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's people are like, oh man, all the stuff we wrote before 2022 was some 12-year-old intern and it was just volume SEO thirst trap garbage, right? And it's or
the company's changed directions or a combination of both.
That's another one.
Also me.
It's really interesting. So the stuff that's garbage, our response is then take it off the website because that's still representing you. So if you're not happy, and I'll say this to everybody until the end of the day, if you wouldn't actively send anything on your website to someone in an email, take it off the website, kill it, or improve it. But my God, the volume of people who will be like, oh yeah, you know what? 80% of the stuff on our website, it's not good enough. Why is it on the website? You guys, come on, raise it up a level. And the thing that I find really remarkable is that the approach has been, oh, well then let's spin up even more volume of C-grade content using these generative AI tools. It's all so much noise, and there's no wonder that that the Gen AI hype cycle in marketing has been coming down over the course of the last couple of months in particular. It was a ton of hype, dude, we can scale our blogs and get all the SEO traffic. And it was uh-oh, this is all terrible. And our bounce rate is 99%. Our site authority just cratered, and now Google's summarizing all the summaries anyway. So let's get out of that game. So I think the owned audience part of this that we feed into is the thing that I'm really excited about. This idea of I don't need to get a bunch of garbage organic traffic. What I need is to take really good care of the people who have made their way into my CRM or map, right? It's let's do a great job with them, and they'll go tell their friends, and we're going to grow organically that way. But I don't want to say SEO is over. It's still a great growth lever, but it isn't a great growth lever if all you're doing is just getting people to the site because you're keyword stuffing, right? Which is a lot of what these generative tools are doing. So we do find that there can be a bit of a hurdle. We do have a set of features in planning that will actually help companies instantly assess the health of their entire content archive, which I'm super excited about.
That's
cool.
Yeah, it's dope. It's super dope.
Is that the content quality analysis thing you were alluding to the other day?
Yes, sir. It's super cool. And we actually have gotten into 3 like versionings of it on the roadmap. So the first one will just be, dude, you don't even have a meta description or an image on 38% of your content. Like, can't use that. It's not good.
Weird.
And then it's quality, right? Is it generating engagement, and then actually tuning to brand voice and what the current structure is, and making sure it's all kind of graded historically.
Well, that's awesome.
Right? Yeah.
That's awesome. And then you were also talking about being able to leverage LinkedIn content across channels. Is that something still?
Oh man, I'm so excited about this. I started playing with the idea of this in Q1. I started taking links to my own LinkedIn posts where I just didn't bother putting it up in a blog post. I was like fever dream and right on LinkedIn about this, whatever idea was coming into my head. And the engagement with those links was awesome. It was really awesome. So we have a way to pipeline into LinkedIn data, inclusive of posts at the person level. We also use LinkedIn data in order to enrich interest graphs on contacts that'll be in somebody's HubSpot database. So you can actually start from a cold start, basically having, approximated what an SDR would do for desk research before they'd reach out. Right. So really pretty cool. But we can pull in posts, and we actually pull in company posts now for our content competition feature. Like, hey, here's what your competitors are posting to LinkedIn. Here's how many engagements they're getting. Here's what they're talking about. Here's what they're talking about on their website. So it's kind of a cool feature. So we're already doing this in a way. But what I want to do is actually bring all of a company's company page posts and thought leadership team posts, right? So the CEO and the VPs and stuff, like people who are posting about what it is that the business does more often than not, and pull all that into a new content type so that you could actually write an email or create a landing page or even have a chatbot response on your website. It's like, hey, by the way, this is a conversation that I kind of like, we kicked up over on LinkedIn, would love you to join. Oh, grr. Like, I think that's like, the third wall being broken down in a lot of ways.
I mean, kudos for LinkedIn for really turning it around. That was, people were like, hey, it would be really helpful? Post your thoughts on LinkedIn. But now it's definitely a requirement.
Yeah, it's absolutely a requirement.
It comes with the same demons of all the other platforms too, like having to chase the dragon, so to speak, of staying up with content engagement and stuff. It's like, you slide out for a month or two, and it's a whole different landscape, man. I honestly can't keep up with it. I had to take a break. Just like it's tough, man. It's tough.
Well, now you're in an undiggable hole. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully
this episode saves it. Hopefully this is the one that brings the boys to the yard or whatever.
I'll come over anytime, handsome. No.
Like in your future roadmap, are you going to stay all content? It feels like you might be like a really nice like additive to some of the sales engagement platforms that are looking for unique ways to separate themselves.
Yeah, it's a fair question, and we get the question a bunch. And I'll tell you, there's two things that we're doing now. So one of the things is all the content recommendations that ATC sticks back into HubSpot. I mean, you can use them and display them wherever you want. So like in our own contact record, like we display next best content, right, on every contact record. So as I'm in there doing direct follow-up with sales opportunities, I'm like, ooh, all right, I'll just grab that and I'll drop that into an email. I don't have to think about it. It's a really nice enablement piece. And the other thing that's really cool is we don't use any of the kind of like classic kind of cool call tracking software like Gong and stuff like that, just because the sales team, you're talking to it. There's not people for me to really be listening in on, but we do use Zoom, and we have Zoom and HubSpot connected. And when you connect Zoom and HubSpot, guess what you get? Full transcript. So full transcript goes in on the contact. That gets sucked into ATC interest graph too, right? So and talk about sales enablement. So I'm walking out of a sales call. Everything that person said is influencing what their next set of recommendations are going to be. I don't know, between next best content and being able to activate against call recordings, I would say that we're doing basically anything that a sales enablement platform would want to be able to achieve, but in HubSpot, right? And so when somebody comes back and they're like, oh, well, can we use this with our sales enablement platform? We have whatever it is, outreach is connected to HubSpot for us. That's fine. HubSpot's connected to outreach. The values are the values. Just make sure that you put the properties over in outreach and then just turn on the sync. I don't need to connect to outreach. I don't need to do that. Like, is there an argument to do that down the road? Like, maybe, but we're probably better off putting, a direct integration to Salesforce and then kind of calling it a day, because by the time we've done that, we kind of got everything,
Yeah, you've got market share covered for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So there's
I haven't had a chance to see this. The recommended content piece does sound really helpful, and we're like a Google shop, like Google Workspace and Google Partner, but we use Fathom for our recordings, which have the ability to sync transcripts. Haven't done it, didn't see a reason, but actually now that you mention it, I see a very good reason, because that transcript can help inform the content push. And does it also inform this curated landing page, content page that we've made specifically for them? Is that all tied together?
Yes, 100%, cool. Because the recommendations are all the same centralized brain. That's the thing. I mean, that's why we are called air traffic control, is that we're really endeavoring to sit betwixt all of these signals and assets and just make sure it all gets to where it needs to go. But the recommendations, they live on the human. Right? It's up to our customers to make decisions about where they want those to get displayed. But whether you want to put it in an email template or look at it on the contact record or put it on a landing page or put it in a chatbot response or put it in a banner at the top of the web page or in a pop-up, it doesn't matter, right? As long as that thing is served by HubSpot or something connected to HubSpot, off you go.
That's cool.
My gears are running already.
I saw you. Dude, I saw you. It's like the Oompa Loompas were like jumping around in there. Super fired up.
I think we talked about having like air traffic control within like maybe even the pre-onboarding conversation with Rich when we were just talking about the job, because like, we do things definitely different than your average like consultancy, like big emphasis on community building, big emphasis on content. So like having the marketing ops role, it's been a real powerhouse, and kudos to Rich just being able to unlock some of the hidden superpowers we've had. I've really been able to appreciate shedding light on like Katrina's literally the best service provider you can have. HubSpot's working with her to help basically create new documentation for partners on how to service better. And to have her just share her own thoughts for 15 minutes and then Rich do his AI content magic. I mean, it's been a beautiful thing.
Everybody's got to have a superstar like that. I don't know. I mean, I think the Rich archetype is hired too late in most organizations. I think that the vast majority of scaling problems that a lot of businesses start to hit around $1 million in ARR, if they would just hire marketing ops, rev ops, person. And I don't mean get you a HubSpotter. I mean, get you somebody who knows what they're doing, right? It's not, oh, this is a 24-year-old who is familiar with HubSpot, which is a lot of like, let's get defined as MOPS within kind of emerging marketing teams. And I think that's super problematic. In all those cases, if someone were to ask me, I'd go get an agency until you can afford to get a real marketing operations person, because who you hired is a number two. They're an operator who can like follow some directions, but they are not visionary in the way that when I start to say ATC can show up anywhere and Rich's brain starts to float off into the clouds about 19 more use cases, they can't see it. Not that they never.
Oh, he
can.
definitely has to get reined in sometimes. For sure. It was a fun opportunity that was created in the beginnings of working together. It was the same thing I loved. Still was so hard to appreciate, having to like tap this. But I think when I think of like really effective marketing, it's like you do need two types of humans to work together. And you need the marketing ops person that can build the systems to create consistency and just the mechanisms for measurement. So that way you can track performance and improve it, as I always say. That's a rich quote. I butcher every time. But then you also need the Red Bull marketer. You need the in-your-face, shameless plug, promotion, like the gift of gab, knowing exactly what to say to draw the smile and create that sentiment and create that brand. So it's been lovely, not saying that I am that person. I'm going to nominate myself for the moment. But it has been great being the yin to Rich's yang. That's weird. And just
For
like
those
great
only
combination.
listening, everybody's currently smiling. So yeah.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a few employment violations. I just broke with some of the verbiage, but like we get it. It's all good. I'm just saying, for people that are looking at bringing in marketing people, if there's not the ops person and the sizzle person, you're not. I don't think it's gonna land, man. You can't just have one or the other in 2024.
You got to be able to feed off each other, right? Like we don't.
Different sides of the brain too.
Yeah, and we don't agree on everything always. And it's good because it challenges both of us to think differently and expand. And Nick can ramble off a few features which sound pretty awesome, and like you said, sometimes just got to rein it in. But there's a lot of opportunity across the board, even from a sales enablement point of view, that if you get the right person to feed in with the sizzle person, then the output's gonna be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say.
I feel you, dog. I feel you.
Thanks for being you, Rich. I can say that too while we're on record. I mean, how's it like, Nick, having the resource in Rich working for a HubSpot consultancy that's helping companies leverage HubSpot? How have your interactions with Rich been? No stress needed. But like generally speaking, what is that like? 'Cause he comes with so much client knowledge and so much HubSpot specific knowledge, and he's definitely a genius category. Is it overwhelming, or is it like familiar territory?
Dude, you know what it is? It's like, I think it probably feels a lot like it feels for you, which is knowing the technical guts of what it is that we do. I can turn around on a whiteboard and I can draw kind of like fundamentally possibilities, right? But Rich takes me through a demo and shows the 3 recommended blog post module that's just a drag and drop reusable element that like any business user now at growth could just drag onto any page. I immediately turned around and told our team to get building the exact same modules in our HubSpot environment. I'm like, dude, that was awesome. And what it does is we then turned it into documentation. We are now starting to share that documentation with customers. We're like, this is how you do it, right? And if you need help doing it, then I know some people who could help, like the dude who made this in the first place, right? And that's, I think, one of the really cool things about having agency partners in this too is, people are going to struggle. And there's going to be, as soon as people start to get over that first, oh my God, this page is more performant. We're getting clicks that we haven't gotten before. We're getting more pages per visit. We're actually starting to see pipeline grow because we're actually getting more hand raisers because they're getting deeper into their web visits. This is starting to get pretty cool. Now what? Right. And it was HubSpot themselves that were like, what about throwing it in the chatbot? I'm like, what? Oh my God. That's so awesome. Yes, it would work. And we're going to go build some workflows that like use it in the chatbot, and then threw it up on the site, and we were like, what? And so returning visitors are seeing content that's, tuned to them, but it's through the super conversational flow. And I think that's the thing that's, again, when I come back to why HubSpot, why that ecosystem, it just feels like a whole lot of that, of people seeing what's possible and helping to actually like color in what are otherwise for me a bunch of like black lines on white boards, as you can see behind me, right? Like
I
the
love that
coloring in
those
is,
whiteboards still exist.
dude, it's a ping pong table, and that is whiteboard tape that we shoved up on there. That's
You're my
awesome.
favorite. I love a bootstrap story. It's great, man. It'll be interesting to see. So, like, I think one of the things that's important before I even go down this weird path is, like, when we're talking about the marketing and the website clicks and things, this is from curated people based in roles at companies that are a fit for your ideal customer, not who the sales director is trying to hit to close the quota, but you have a deep understanding of who you sell best to and who you help best.
I
These
did.
people
Yes.
end up being able to visit your website, have access to this unique page, and then these are the people who the content's curated for. This isn't for 2010 marketing where you're running Google ads, top of funnel type stuff. This is very intentional. You're
Yep.
almost respecting the person's time at like a level that most don't even understand, because you're curating this stuff that they care about. Maybe I am a sales director, but maybe I really am like passionate about marketing, and the content that ATC serves me is based off of my actual usage of the internet and things. And so I
Yep.
end up seeing something really cool in marketing that may not apply to my job, but may also be what pushes me over, that makes me the next customer for ATC or whatever company
Yep.
is using it, is generally the thought.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So I think there are two really important threads there. One, I come back to the concept of like the owned audience all the time, right? Optimizing for a widely cast net of people around whom we aren't even sure who we're casting it around. I mean, that's the foundation of revenue failure, right? And I think that there is that tools like Clay, for example, that allow you to go a level deeper and then deeper and then deeper and then deeper until you have qualified down to an addressable audience of maybe just 500 accounts. It doesn't matter, but that you've got those people in those accounts so well qualified that everything else is worth the effort. That means you can write content that supports the things that they care about. You can direct your outbound motion, right? You can expect to have better conversions. You can decrease the nebulous nature of the vast majority of product marketing messaging, right? You can get specific and be successful, right? I mean, these are all the hallmarks of great ABM. All we're saying is if your ABM decisions in terms of casting your net are driven in large part by execution limitations, that's something that we really want to help you get rid of at ATC by doing a better job of navigating all of these different connective points. Now, I will say that from a top of funnel perspective, one of the things that we are seeing people use is the same way that we know it's been recommended for Chris and recommended for Rich. We know everyone for whom each piece of content has been recommended. And so you can hit a button on any content item in ATC and export a custom LinkedIn audience and then load that to LinkedIn and promote that piece of content to that audience and our customers. And so basically what we're doing is we're saying it's still the same audience, it's still the same people from inside of HubSpot. But now we're taking the mountain to Muhammad, so to speak, right? It's like, okay, well, they haven't subscribed yet. Maybe they haven't been to the website, but we know that they are people we want to talk to. So we used ATC to do a big LinkedIn enrichment. We have all the company news going on. We've got a pretty good idea about what they care about. And oh, here's the content most recommended for this new cold ABM audience that we have. And then people go out and they promote that on LinkedIn, and CPCs, their costs will drop 80, 90% from what they're used to seeing. I mean, it plummets. Now, the
Interesting.
audience is small, and it's a
Yep.
content play, but it works. And then you do that for 3-4 weeks, and then you start to hit them with the outbound emails, and they're like, oh, those guys are smart. I read a bunch of their stuff over the last few weeks.
So may I like walk that out in real time? So you've got the LinkedIn ads account tied to HubSpot. You create a list based off of ATC content recommendations, let's say ABM for 2024. It kicks out on a contact level, whomever is already in your database and maybe people with similar attribution, we'll call it 500 people. And that way you're running the ad specifically to those 500 because the click through rate is so high. LinkedIn's incentivized to push it in front of all 500. It costs you less than others because they're not forcing it down someone's throat.
That's
essentially
exactly right.
Just like the respecting people's time boiled down into the math behind it.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, and there's small audiences. And the thing that's really cool is that it's another one of those, like, your content library is chock full of opportunity, right? You're the average kind of, marketing team. You got a couple hundred things between blogs and recorded webinars and podcasts and case studies and everything else. It's like, all right, create all the audiences that you want. Create an audience for every single content item that you have. And do that until, I don't know, forever, right? and it's awesome because it's like you guys did the work. And this is the thing that we kind of keep coming back to. And it's one of the reasons that we were thinking about this feature set around trying to really establish how good your content might be so that you feel like you're in a good spot. But if you write world-class stuff, there are tools like ATC that make the ROI on really awesome content production 1,000 times more valuable than scaling up a shit ton of garbage. Right. And this is the thing that I think marketers are kind of like in love with us about a little bit is, oh, dude, I'd rather spend time writing some awesome thing. Like that's what I like. I come from the creative side. I come from content. I come from these places. I want to write phenomenal stuff. I love that. But it's hard to make the case. Well, the case now is that this piece of content is going to get leveraged across every single one of your channels automatically down to the human level every time it makes sense. Forever. That's a completely transformative matrix through which to view all of your content efforts.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. My hope is that we're able to help put this podcast in front of like marketing managers that are involved with the decisions of what do we need to do to separate ourselves from our competition.
Totally.
This agencies that are looking for ways to also separate themselves, what are the new tools that have a roadmap so they're not going to be like a set it and disappear in 2 months type tool, like what's going to be around for the next year. And I'm like a big component on vetting the software partners you work with for like future space, and then, I mean, even to the sales teams, there's so often we really thrive in tenured organizations that have been around, B2C, some, but like really love this B2B space for lots of reasons. And you come up against these sales directors that are, just like this classic caricature of just show me the sales types. And I'm going to continue. And I feel like we're all on the same page of like, you keep yelling that garbage. And the garbage I'm going to yell back is take the time to understand who your current customers are that are really fun to work with. Fun, maybe like insert other word here. But that are happy to work with you and find more of those, dude. Stop making up companies. And I think ATC fits really well into that narrative because it is challenging for what may be a soft-spoken marketer to step up to a boisterous sales director. And so that this tool can like just help the math a bit more. And so I'm glad we were able to like just talk about it in detail.
Yeah. Well, and what I add there, like for the sales guy that I didn't think of before, and it's because of this conversation that it's there, is like, how often are they sitting there thinking about what can they send their customer? And, we can create a content library and we can say, it's for this ICP, it's for this persona, it's for these pain points. But what I really like about the power of the ATC that I'm thinking about now is sales guy's sitting there. He's got the contact record open. Here's 3 things that can help you today. I don't have to go searching for it. And that's just powerful.
And dude, I mean, and the thing is with all this other stuff that's in market, and now I'm going to be a little competitive bitch, but it's like, guess how those assets are being associated with those personas? It's at the persona level. It's got nothing to do with Chris or Rich, right? That's a problem. And that's the foundation of all the rest of the problems related to all these different solutions. It's not about the human.
Yeah.
It's always about the persona. And then guess how the content gets aligned to the persona? A human makes that decision. Ugh, guys, like it can't work that way. It's all the ways that all this stuff goes to die. Says who? Says who that, this person with this persona is supposed to see this content also? Guess what gets into those tools too? Almost none of the quote unquote classic marketing content. It is never going to suggest podcast. Never, ever are they going to put that in there. It's going to be some freaking sell sheet and maybe the case studies. Blog posts, probably not.
Yeah.
Right? Resources, courses, probably not. And that's the stuff where people are like, oh, this is really cool. And I'm going to spend time with this. And now I'm in love with growth. And I really want to work with these guys. That's where it happens. It's not, this is the best sell sheet for this persona. I just think it's interesting. My wife is so good at the following. When she in her gut knows that something just is horse crap, she's like, that's horse crap. That can't possibly be how any of this works. That's not how people work. That's not good at all. And I think it's that, like, we really need to start calling out that a lot of the tooling that we think is helping our sales teams is actually at the root of what is divorcing our marketing and our sales organizations from each other, because they're making decisions that ignore everything that marketing has done. And marketing is actually out there hauling ass, trying to provide pipeline to the sales team. And everything that they've done for the last 5 years is worth deploying to help them continue to be successful. And I just think it's wild that they're not equipped that way. I think it's like totally nuts.
Mic drop.
Here.
Nailed it.
Bully.
We were chatting about people looking for practical advice. You've recommended April Dunford's, obviously awesome for positioning. Tell us real quick, because we're coming to the end here, how has this resource helped you with your own strategies at ATC? What's obviously awesome about that book?
On my table.
I've got the digital downloads.
It's so look, I think the thing that's really interesting about I think that product marketing gets like ignored, and I think the wrong people are thinking about it the wrong ways. I get into traps about it all the time. And it's this really kind of powerful thesis on how it is that anybody, regardless of whether it's a product or a service, it really doesn't matter, should be approaching how they just make it abundantly clear what it is that you do and who you do it for and why they should care about that. Right. And it's just wild. It's like, I can't tell you how many times, like I do some startup kind of go-to-market advisory stuff on the side, and I'll go to somebody's website before I'll have a call with them. And then we get on the Zoom and I'm like, look, I don't mean to be a jerk, but like, what? I have no idea what this is. That site is beautiful. I don't have a clue what you do or who you do it for. I was on a website earlier this week for an agency. Sorry, agency. And I'm looking through and they're looking for like some advisory on go-to-market stuff. I was on like 9th click in, like all over this website before I was like, oh, they're a Shopify agency. Nowhere on the homepage did it even say the word Shopify. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is all you do. But it took me 9 pages. How many garbage inbounds do you get? Because it's like, oh, they do pretty stuff on the internet and I like pretty stuff. Right. And it's like, this is the stuff that really blows my mind. And just, I think April Dunford's like framework for it is just it's so clear, and anyone, marketer or not, is better off having read it, and they'll be better in their jobs having done so.
That's awesome.
She's awesome.
Hey, let them know.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, for our listeners out there, who want to follow your journey, support your initiatives, what's the best place for them to connect with you, Nick?
My bank. No, they come to me. No, it's, LinkedIn is great. I'm just in Zeckets is my handle on LinkedIn. It's the best place to get to me.
Well,
Very smart dude. Like, almost must have tool if you're trying to separate yourself, and if you're investing in like just individual outreach, like give it a try. Get a marketing ops person to help out.
I support that.
/call growth.
Yes. Just
One
call
two
it.
punch.
Yep.
Double
Everything
shameless
you
plug
need.
on accident.
It's right here.
That's awesome. Well, Nick, thanks so much for being here today and sharing your insights, your experiences. It's been a pleasure. Chris, do you have anything you want to top this off with?
You nailed it, man. Great tool, man. I know it's a struggle creating something new in a market, and I know being on the other side of the screen from you and trying to understand it, your messaging is improving. The fact that it works is not undeniable. Keep grinding, man.
Thanks,
and continue
dude.
to be a champion for good on this one. It's a great tool.
My dude. I love that.
And you're a hell of a human.
Oh, woo. You're getting after my heart. Be careful.
That's what it's all about.
You're a plane flight away from a big old bear hug.
Yeah, we'll see you in September.
See you in September.
Yeah,
there you go.
all right.